Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the program of Sri Akilandeswari Women's College on the topic of the bottom line and innovation, which comes first. And we have our guest, Mr. Thiru.Muthusingaram, CEO, Incubation Healthcare Technology Innovation Center, and another guest, Prathistha Jain, former Senior Manager, Healthcare Technology Innovation Center, and CEO, co-founder of Calidad Healthcare Private Limited. Now I request Dr. M.K.Vadivazhagi, the Institution Innovation Council Vice-president and also Assistant Professor, Department of Biochemistry, Sri Akilandeswari Women's College, Wandiwash to I request Dr.N.Tamilarasi, IIC President, Head and Assistant Professor, Department of Computer Science, Sri Akilandeswari Women's College, Wandiwash to give welcome address.
An auspicious morning to one and all gathered here. Greetings from the management of Sri Akilandeswari Women's College, Wandiwash. I am very happy to welcome you all for the webinar, The Bottom Line and Innovation, which comes first, organized by Institutions Innovation Council of Sri Akilandeswari Women's College. It's my immense pleasure to welcome our Honorable Chairman, Sir, and most respected Secretary, Sir, and our beloved Principal, Madam, for this webinar. And I'm very glad to welcome our today's resource person, Thiru.Muthusingaram, Sir, CEO, Incubation, Healthcare Technology Innovation Center, IITM, in this wonderful occasion. Welcome, sir. And I took privilege to welcome Ms. Prathistha Jain, former Senior Manager, Incubation, Healthcare Technology Innovation Center, IITM, and co-founder, Calidad Healthcare Private Limited. Welcome, ma'am. And I'm very happy to welcome the team members of IITM, faculty members from various institutions, heads of various departments, faculty members of Sri Akilandeswari Women's College, Wandiwash, and students for this one webinar. Once again, I welcome you all.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your welcome address. Now I request Dr. M.K.Vadivazhagi to deliver the guest introduction.
Respected dignitaries, faculty, and my dear student, very good morning to you all. It gives me great pleasure to introduce the chief guest of this wonderful webinar on the bottom line and innovation, which comes first. We are honored this morning by the presence of the Honorable Chief Guest, Mr. Muthusingaram, CEO, Incubation at Healthcare Technology Innovation Center, IIT Madras. Sir Muthusingaram is a parallel entrepreneur, having been involved in several startups over the last 20 years. He has 25 years experience in engineering, management, and entrepreneurship. He did his engineering and MBA in multimedia finance, and his passion is entrepreneurial development, mentoring, management, emerging technology, and innovation. He is a British trained chartered electrical engineer and chartered member in IET UK, a chartered engineer in Engineering Council UK, and an European engineer in European Federation of National Engineering Association. He also certified corporate director from Institute of Directors. Sir Muthusingaram has been a judge and mentor in many business plan competitions, including IIM, IIT, Power of Fire, HSBC Business Plan Competition, several others in the last 15 years. He also is a council member for the National Incubator Network. Sir Muthu has mentored, consulted, and facilitated participants from many parts of the world. Those include companies like British Telecom, Institute of Public Administration, Malaysia, Federation of Malaysian Manufacturing, Small and Medium Industries Development Corporation, the National Productivity Corporation, Malaysian International Chamber of Commerce and Industries. He is a visiting faculty member and professor at several universities in Malaysia and India. Those include the prestigious IIT Madras, Kanpur, and Anna University, Madras. He is a project director of British Telecom at the Research Center. In a span of 16, the team of 10 patents and 16 publications. Currently, Sir is working in a virtual international business accelerator, VibaZone, based in several locations. Sir Muthusingaram recent major consulting assignment in the for of Malaysian government agency and the Prime Minister Office and industry-driven innovation. He is a regular speaker at many international entrepreneurship conferences and lead facilitator for innovation and other workshops. He is a regular speaker at many international and national level workshops. So Muthusingaram is a regular contributor to several major magazines. Other two books, one is Hands-on Guide to Starting a Business and another one is Greenfield. Next, I introduce another chief guest, Prathistha Jain, CEO and co-founder, former senior incubation manager, healthcare technology, innovation center, IIT Madras. Prathistha has been involved with the startup ecosystem over 5 years of experience working with entrepreneur, companies, individual, government organization in the area of entrepreneurship, incubation, acceleration, and innovation. She is a regular co-speaker at entrepreneurship conference, even in Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, Germany, and the United States. She also co-authored a book called Greenfield, Suggested Standard Operating Procedure for Incubators with Muthusingaram. Prathistha is the director of VibaZone India and is involved in setting up incubation center. She is also co-founder and co-creator of the Startup Podium. She has executive master in business administration at the Department of Management Studies, IIT Madras. Thank you and welcome once again both chief guests. Thank you one and all.
And thank you so much, ma'am. Now the session is over to Mr. Muthusingaram.
Okay, thank you so much for your kind introduction. It took longer than my lecture, but it's fine. Thank you so much. I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll get started straight away. We'll speak probably for about 40 minutes and then maybe take some questions. It's always a good idea that you're just going to spend the morning with us. We would like you to take 30 seconds where I'll keep quiet. Then what would you like to achieve this morning from this lecture? So please go ahead and I'll keep quiet for 30 seconds. Okay, we'll get started on the first slide. Innovation is a word overused, it's misused and often misunderstood. So let's start the lecture with those premises in mind. The I word on innovation is irritating, it's irresistible, however, it is extremely interesting. What bottom line is? So I think before we start, it's good to know what the bottom line is. It's about the net earnings, net income, or earning per share of an organization. Any action that may increase or decrease the net earning or company overall profit. So this is the most important figure in your accounting statement, the bottom line. If it is huge, you're doing well. If it's low, you got to worry because you're not actually being profitable. So one has to improve bottom line can happen by growing its net income or reducing its cost. Most companies.
Sorry to interrupt you, sir. If you like, you can switch on your video.
Doesn't really matter, but okay.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
So it improves the bottom line. It can help an organization by growing its net income or reducing its cost. So these are some other ways of improving your bottom line. So let's move on to the next slide. The definition by Investopedia explains that the reference to the bottom describes the relative location of the net income figure on a company's income statement. This would usually be the last line at the bottom of the page. And this will show you what you are doing at that time and moment. Most companies aim to improve their bottom line through stimulus methods, one by growing and the other by increasing efficiency. Now, many companies are generating revenue. At the same time, they've increased their cost. So they end up having a lower bottom line. So they need to focus on the income coming in and going out. Very, very important. Now, a simple question here before we start. What innovation is and is not? So many years ago, when I first started working in innovation and entrepreneurship, I had visited a CEO, an English CEO who ran one of the largest, probably the world's largest contract manufacturing semiconductor. They had hundreds of patents, but he didn't think they were innovative enough. So he asked me why his patents are not converting. And this is an answer I gave him that morning, probably 20 years ago. And he was quite taken back and he hired me to be his consultant. Now, what innovation is? It's basically, it needs people, which is what he had, and they had to create value. And what he was lacking, they were not creating value, and hence the innovation of his organization was poor. So once you're able to get the people to create value, and this is where innovation happens. Now, how can innovation happen? It can happen in new products, it can happen in new methods of production, opening of new markets, new source of suppliers will assume great importance for sustaining your competitiveness. Besides this, there can be business models, which many organizations are doing. You will hear later in the morning some of these. Marketplace collaboration and new designs, all this can create innovation. So it's important to understand. And later in the morning, Prathistha will talk a little bit about invention and innovation. It's very important for us to understand the difference between invention and innovation. This is a little seesaw. Innovation is not necessarily new, but it has to be applied to have commercial value, or it's needed. So not necessarily, for example, if you come up with a clean way of making water and it's saving thousands and thousands of villages, then you've innovated in your process. And then innovation usually converts money. It converts to money. Invention, something new, but not necessarily with commercial value. Again, my colleague will show you some examples. So like the www was an invention, but it was not an innovation. However, things like Flipkart, things like Amazon, they became innovation on top of the www. So these are some of the important things for you to remember. Innovation brings you money. Invention takes away your money. But without invention, you can't really do much innovation. So you really need invention. Bigger things happen with new inventions. So they are both equally important. Now, projects. You need to see that an innovation activity cannot be managed it cannot be managing the present. It has to have linear changes. You have to selectively forget the past and you have to create the future. This is what innovation is all about. Managing the present, selectively forgetting the past and creating a new future. The process itself requires thinking process, very, very important. It requires capability, it requires matrix, it requires resources, This is your process for creating innovation. Most valuable. Over the last 2 decades, many companies felt the most surefire way to maintain a competitive advantage was through quality or pricing. However, research shows that's not the case. It is innovation which kept them as value differentiators. This is where companies like Google, Microsoft, and Apple have succeeded. They've been extremely innovative, and many of them spend 10 to 20%, 25%, some even 50% on creating innovation. So it's very, very important. Innovation is like mountain climbing. As you reach, the focus is the top. Nobody cares about coming down, even though coming down the Mount Everest is more dangerous than climbing it. but nobody ever talks about somebody falling down and dying. They only talk about people going up and dying. So that is very, very important. And innovation is like Thomas Edison said, 1% inspiration and 99% expiration. So it's important for us to understand the importance of innovation is at the top and not going down. There are different types of innovation. I had done this slide many years ago when others only talked about incremental and radical innovation, and they did not talk about breakthrough. They used to pile radical and breakthrough together, but even today, the bigger schools around the world have agreed. There's 3 of them. We'll talk about what incremental means. Incremental means small changes to existing product. Radical is changing the existing product completely, and breakthrough is primarily a new product or services. And these fall into 4 categories. Mostly in India, people are looking at product. They don't really worry so much about process or strategy or people. All these innovations are important to move a company. So if we look at somebody like Flipkart, Amazon, their innovation is more on their process, strategy, and people. Their product is not what they work on. So it's critical to understand that innovation goes beyond product, and companies which are able to build processes and strategy and get their people working to achieve great amounts of innovation. Now, innovation is a discipline. You have to approach it as a discipline. Innovation must be approached comprehensively. You need to organize it. It has to be systematic, and it has to be continuous search for new opportunities. It must involve everyone in the organization, not just the CEO, everyone. It has to often include, not often, almost all the time, you need to have your customer focused. It is many of them focus on competition. That's probably not a primary objective. You should be looking at what value you're going to create. Value innovation for your customers. By doing this, you put your competition out. Continuing with this, you must differentiate between creativity and innovation. Many of us are creative, but we are not innovative. We'll talk about it in a little bit. Companies send people to facilitate brainstorms. Most of the time, it's waste of time. It's good to build teams. It's good to have a nice holiday, a nice party, a few drinks, enjoy. People come back, do nothing. But at least it brings into team building, but not too much of innovation. People come back with ideas, but not very seldom anything gets implemented because people get on to their work as they come back. Companies will say they have too many ideas, but will not have a place where to separate winners and losers. So that's very important. So companies like Disney, Microsoft, Apple, they actually provide special events, special places for people to come up with new ideas which the companies would adopt. So it's not about just starting a new startup. Even existing companies need people with smart, bright ideas. Very, very important. Ideas which bring great value to customers also improve bottom value. And often companies need to use their skills, knowledge, and commitment, and the people. Must teach innovation so people can understand how to think through their ideas and know how to align them with company goals. Just like anything else, we get better by practicing and making mistakes. Now, we spoke about creativity and innovation. Now, the separation between these two, people come up with ideas, daydreamers, observers, brainstorming, you do a screening, and then you come out with the output. The output could be better, faster, cheaper, aesthetic. This is very, very important. Now, reviewing something which Professor of Innovation, Clayton Christensen, one of the leaders in innovation in Harvard, says, due to an emphasis on IIR and RONA results in poor business structure. Companies such as Dell have outsourced nearly all aspects of design and production. As a result, they have lost the creativity and talent, he says. So he blames the business school. So we'll continue and see whether that's correct. Results on innovation, however, often requires large input of assets. These measures are short-sighted, do not consider long-term cost of losing knowledge and innovation capability. So this is important, as he says. Now, even if he's right, companies go deeper than being what is taught in class. Is it a problem with corporate culture? We must encourage companies to shift away from short-term profits and to focus on innovation. This is very, very important. Now, looking at questions, companies should provide goods, not jobs, but company can deliver better products more cheaply to customers than they should do. They should focus on long-term capability. However, outsourcing knowledge base is always dangerous. So you need to have a form of in-house team as well. And of course, there's another subject sometime later we can talk about open innovation. What is the benefit of open innovation? That's where you actually stretch out to others outside your organization. Business functions by focusing on making money. National development is not their priority. This is how companies operate. Here, companies such as Apple that focus on innovation are excelling. Companies should focus on long-term profits and not short-term profit. So that's moving forward. Now, building the ecosystem. We require government fundings. We need universities, colleges like you to do R&D. Of course, in the West, the military and industry apply the technology. Even now in India, our armed forces, our naval forces, and also our air forces have started building their own technology and working very hard on many of these technology, which is now coming into industry. So all this is important to build the ecosystem. Public policy, very important. Companies are moving away from basic research. Why? Because they can use universities and government will need to support these and industry will need to create the business model. Universities need to be funded. Otherwise, no one is going to fund them. So government's role is still continue to fund them. However, to encourage the university to commercialize. So it keeps on going in a circle. As they invest money, more research can be done. Of course, universities need to publish papers to show that they're creating value in their system, and government needs to increase education and skills in order to keep the economy moving. Governments need to provide infrastructure necessary because infrastructure is often a dead cost. So who can afford to do that? Only government needs to do. Government needs to build accelerators to help some of these things to move faster. Now, return on innovation investment is a coefficient of investment profits. So this is another figure you need to look at how you're doing depending on the revenue and costs. Are you actually going forward with your new innovations? We'll take an example of Blackberry. We did this many years ago as Blackberry was going down when we were doing the tour of our innovation programs in Canada. It was one of the first companies to launch a truly smartphone. And people like me used to carry Blackberries because it was so good in terms of doing emails. They're so secure. It was fantastic. However, Blackberries, you can see the stock was $140 US. It went down to $9 US. It's completely wiped it out. It had a global market in 2009, almost 20%. It was half within 2 years. Who could argue that the lack was the key? The company set its way, didn't adapt to Apple or Android. They both went ahead with taking in. People wanted their phone for more than just doing emails. And BlackBerry did not focus on third party. And we had at that time said, it would be argued that the lack of emphasis on innovation was the key. BlackBerry stopped responding to the customer need and market need. It was focusing again on competition. It was not focusing on the customer need. And as such, it was not able to wipe its competition out. And the operating system became outdated while everybody else's hardware caught up. Moving forward, some innovators thought BlackBerry could have partnered with Microsoft to push Windows 8. They could have built a modified Android OS tailored for business, could have focused on building mobile apps to be sold across platforms, could have partnered with computer manufacturers such as Lenovo to build special package, syncing, etc. But they did not do any of this. Now, in 1997, Jobs returned to Apple when it was nearly going to go to bankrupt. They changed their product lines. They started coming up with the iPod, which changed the revolutionary of music. You could have thousands of songs in your pocket, and many of these songs we could purchase for 99 cents. So it was completely revolutionary, innovative. We already had things like Sony Walkman and so on, but yet the iPod changed the way it delivered music to its customers. And then companies had lost most of its market share to Microsoft as well. So you can see the product line and focus, and they had lost, and they came back strong. Now, Jobs brought back focus on style. He pushed for new operating systems that are stable and easy to use. Apple began to move into the consumer electronics, as I said, iPod, and today iPhone is extremely successful, along with the iPad. Who would have thought people would pay 60,000 rupees or 70,000 rupees for a screen with no keyboard, with no mice, no monitor, just on your hands? 60 to 70,000 a lakh of rupees. People do because it's convenient, easy to carry. It can do everything your computer can do. So this is how Apple rebounded. Android, on the other hand, started allowing others to use their operating system to build applications, which made them very strong. The Google Store. Again, all these are innovations. And Google focused on software and hardware developers, focused on developing It hold at one time 43% of the global market share, must be today 50% or more. Now, again, looking at RIM, which is Blackberry. As consumer wants and needs change, RIM failed to react. So again, it's not about competition, it's about your customer. Often startups and even assessors look at competition. That's not the important part. You need to see what value you deliver to your customers. And that's exactly what Apple did, the value they brought. And Google as well entered the dominating whole new market with their Android software. Now, again, what would a company like mine do? VibaZone. We can't obviously focus always on innovation. We have to be careful because we are not a very large organization. So we really need to make money. If we don't make money, we can't innovate. So we need to balance. And this is where most startups struggle. They need to balance because smaller companies, larger companies have money like Google and Amazon. They can afford to do innovation. We need to be very, very careful. So what are the options? Focus on bottom line, focus innovation. No, the option should be you need to balance on both depending on your organization. Now, you need to focus on the bottom line, small and no funds, fast moving and changing products. You need to focus on your bottom line. Focus on innovation for big and you have fun, slow moving change products. The ideal situation, as I already said, is to balance between the two. Innovation related bottom line. You need to see revenue you received from your new product increase so that the revenue resulted in introducing a new product into the market and compare it and reduce cost, operational cost and revenue obtained from introduction of products to new market. These are some of the measures you can have. Continuing, revenue received from sales of new products as companies grow to the last few years. You need to see the change in relative market value of your company, number of new products you've created, number of innovative ideas you've come up with, ratio between the total number of innovative ideas and number implemented. Very important what you implement, following through, and the time between submission of an innovative idea and start of an innovative project. Number of customers you consider are innovative versus number of total customers you have, and then the innovation index. Here are 5 common mistakes in development of innovation measurements. Having too many indicators, looking at it like a project management. Innovation indicators are not integrated in the performance, focusing on cost and focusing on task. These are some of the issues you don't want to get into. Power of a startup community, which many of you might do in the next several years. Startups are agile and flexible, so you can change quickly. You can repivot. You can change your ideas quickly. Investments into startups today are plenty. So there is lots and lots of larger companies spend money with startups because it's cheaper for them in cost and it's more cost effective to actually acquire or get a startup to build something. So power to deploy is also faster, and the technology startup play a huge role in today's quarantine economy. Very, very important. Corporates might have to shake the attitude, you benefit, I lose, in order for this to work. Now we started off with this. Innovation is irresistible, it's irritating, true. It's irresistible, it's interesting, but business is very, very apt to have it. I'm going to stop there and give my colleague to speak. the next few slides. I've stopped my sharing.
Thank you. Let me just share my screen. So my screen is visible, right?
Yes, yes, yes. Go for
So,
it.
So to sum up what we discussed in the session earlier today, so an initial idea is something which is creative. So you're trying to explore your creativity. And then when you move forward, a willingness to engage in a difficult work or do some hard work in prototyping and finding out what really works and what is different and what is not really available. So that is actually invention. And so you move from actually creation to invention. And when you find out that customers are actually willing to buy your idea and pay for it, then that becomes innovation. So these are simple three terms: creation, invention, and innovation summed up. So we'll take a look at a few examples here. So innovation versus invention. So what do you think of these two, innovation or invention? What would this be? I assume you guys cannot really speak or share your thoughts here. So I'll just go ahead and tell you what it means. So obviously, this phone here, what you see was the initial phone that was invented, and that's how mobile phones got introduced. So yeah, so that is the invention. And then what you have today, iPhone, which is a pure innovation, as we already saw earlier. So what you see here again are three different pictures of a motor vehicle. So the first one is an Uber. The second picture is actually the first car. And the third picture that you see is the first electric vehicle. So of the three of them, the first one is actually an innovation because they have used the existing technology to see how it can be commercialized. The second one is an invention, and the third one is also an invention. So look at this picture. So what you see on the left is a laptop, and on what you see on the right is some chipsets and microprocessors. So obviously the invention was to come up with microprocessors and chipsets, and those were embedded inside laptops, and that became like an innovation. So that's how they commercialized or monetized the solution. So Muthusa had referenced to this earlier. So the boom of internet happened and the WWW had come up. So that was the invention where the internet actually was introduced to the world. But then how people leveraged on it and created platforms to leverage on the internet, like Facebook and Amazon, Flipkart, all these platforms that came after that are actually innovation. So the last example here is the Google Glass, which was an invention because it was one of the first smart glasses that came into the market, but it didn't really take off. There was a failure because they didn't really validate the user experience, and there were a lot of issues because they were not able to sell this product very successfully. So that was an invention. And then later on, you saw VR glasses coming into play. So that was actually an innovation. So with this, we'll get into a quick case study of a company called Nokia. Their focus was connecting people, and they did that wonderfully. The focus of Nokia was to actually create a cellular network in the world. So they were founded in Finland, and they were first to actually create cellular network in the world. And in late 90s and 2000s, Nokia was the global leader in mobile phones, undoubtedly, because they had come up with a range of phones: Nokia 110, Nokia 2720 Flip, and things that you could not even imagine. I remember I had used a Nokia phone when I was in my formative years, and I would throw the phone around and it would not really break. So what does that really translate to? They were really, really good in their hardware, and they were really focused on their hardware. So with the arrival of the internet, other mobile companies started understanding how data was being used, and not really voice was going to be the future of communication as they went forward. What happened to Nokia next is not really a secret, because we don't really see Nokia around in the market so much these days. Apple and Android completely crushed Nokia. So Nokia didn't really grasp the concept of software, and they kept focusing on hardware, because the management feared that to alienate current users if they changed too much. So if they change too much, the current users also might really slip away. So they didn't really change from their original mission or vision. So Nokia's mistake was the fact that they didn't want to lead the drastic change in user experience. This caused Nokia to develop a mess of an operating system with bad user experience, and that just wasn't a fit in the market. Even though when they came out in the market with smartphones, the company overestimated the strength of its brand, the brand value, and believed that no, they could arrive late in the smartphone game and succeed. But in 2007, when Steve Jobs actually launched iPhone, a phone without a keyboard, which was a revolutionary at that time, people really didn't fathom that something like this could happen, and they were really awed and in shock when they saw a touchscreen phone come to play. And you could see that you can look up the video of Apple, how it was, how they launched the product and how people were actually raving about it. So what are the failures from Nokia's journey that you see? They were unable to translate their R&D spending into products that actually people wanted to buy. So they were purely trying to invent, but they didn't really innovate because people are not willing to buy their products after a point. Predominantly engineering focused, and they needed some marketing savvy. So what do you guys think? Steve Jobs was an engineering guy or a marketing guy? So Steve Jobs was a hardcore marketing guy. He knew how to sell things. So that was his core thing. Development process was long, dominated by hardware engineers and software experts. And software experts were completely marginalized, and they had only hardware engineers. They overestimated the strength of its brand. So brand value only works if you have innovation to back it up with. So if you don't have a innovation going on in the background, then your brand value will completely disappear and fade over the years. So the high-tech era has taught people to expect constant innovation is the key. When companies fall behind, consumers are very quick to punish them, and that's how Nokia got punished. And then they were washed out of the market. So that's the case study on Nokia. Now I'll hand over the session back to Muthu sir.
Okay, before we wrap up, I'm going to just do a couple of more slides. Hopefully I can get this share screen working. Okay, I'm on share screen now, so hopefully my slide is showing in the last slide. Okay, this would be our last slide that we show the biggest communication problem is that we don't listen to understand, we listen to reply. So as startups, as innovators, it's important for us to listen. And often we say to people we work with, you need to solve a problem. You cannot be fitting your solution into a problem. And that's where startups tend to fail. They try to fit their solution into a problem. And that's a challenge. So as startups, as innovators, you need to look for solutions for problems existing. And a country like ours has hundreds and hundreds of unsolved problems. So that's important. Now, what is next? I'd like you to identify the key takeaway from this lecture. How does it relate to you? And how would you share with others? Those are the important things for you to look at. And this is my last slide, and I can take questions. If they can be typed in from YouTube, it's fine. This is my email. This is my telephone number. And there's some books in Amazon. If you key our names into Amazon, the books would come up. And there is a YouTube channel where sometimes I post activities related to incubation and innovation. So with that, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. I hope it has been of some use and some value to you to start your startup journey. I'm going to stop the screen, and I will be happy to take any questions from you. If I'm not able to respond, my colleagues are also here. They might be able to also help in responding. So that's where we are. That takes us right nicely into 40 minutes, as we said when we started. So we are open to taking questions. So over to the session chair, host, to open up for questions, or you can ask us questions, the host.
good morning, sir. This is Tamilarasi, sir.
Yes, please.
Sir, being an arts and science college, how we initiate an incubation center in our institute, sir?
It's not that difficult to do an incubator. However, it is not a question I can answer just like that. You need to find out what are the areas you are, your core areas of interest, core areas of strength, and to set up an incubator.
That's fine, sir.
And
Thank you, sir.
Arts and Science College, there's no issues. They can always set up incubators. Just look at the business schools. They all have successful incubators. So it is not about that. You just need to make sure your strength and your interest of your students.
Yes,
Sir, I am Dr.N.Tamilarasi. My question is, any funding agency available for we will starting innovation center, sir? What are the funding agency available?
There's a whole lot of them. You can apply to BIRAC if it is to do with biotech. DST takes care of engineering, technology. You have MITI, which looks at electronics, and you also have other ministries like agriculture, rural. They also support centers. But your best bet for a science college is probably to approach DST or BIRAC to set up a life science. I'm assuming you have things like biotech, biology, and so on in your college degrees.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Okay, if there's no other questions, then I guess if there's any questions, we can take them. You can always write to us, we respond. And of course, thank you for having us. A couple of our colleagues are here, Arushini and Ashish. Very good of them to come and listen.
Thank you so much, sir. And thank you so much, Ms. Prathistha, for sharing your knowledge. I request Ms. Shoba to deliver the vote of thanks.
Thank you.
A warm good afternoon to one and all present here. I deem it a great honor and a privilege to propose the vote of thanks in the memorable program, The Bottom Line and Innovation, which comes first, jointly organized by
You're on mute. You're on mute.
Glory to the Almighty God for making this program a resounding success. First and foremost, I thank our special guest, Thiru.Muthusingaram sir, CEO Incubation, Healthcare Technology Innovation Center, IITM, who despite his busy schedule has found time to share with their knowledge and experience. It makes grace this occasion. Thank you, sir. And I express my heartfelt thanks to Ms. Prathistha Jain, former Senior Manager, Healthcare Technology Innovation Center, COO, co-founder, Calidad Healthcare Private Limited, for her valuable contribution in this program. Next, we are grateful to our Chairman, sir, and Secretary, sir, for his word of encouragement. Their able guidance has always encouraged us. I thank them for their kindness, interest, and continued support. Next, I thank our beloved Principal Ma'am and Vice Principal Ma'am for their unstinted support, guidance in all our effort. And I thank to the head of the departments and faculty members and department coordinators for their cooperation in this program. Last but not the least, I thank you, my dear students, for your cooperation and active participation in making this event a grand success. Once again, I thank you all for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks, and best wishes for the rest of you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Dinesh, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Prathistha ma'am. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dinesh, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Prathistha ma'am. Thank you, sir. Thank you, team members.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Thank you.